We're turning to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and the first 14 verses. Moses addressing the people of God. And the people of God had not yet entered into the promised land, but they are being given instruction. How then shall they live? In the Old Testament, the people of God lived in the land that God gave them, and God himself would be in that particular way their king. There is, of course, much more to the story, but God, being a jealous God, has separated a people for himself through which others may come to know him. So let's pick out a number of thoughts from this passage. And remember a warning, please. Moses himself gave the sermon, and Moses himself would never live to fulfill it. So we need to be very careful with all that God has said to us, and that we are obedient to what God has said to us. Firstly, I want to pick out verse 2. Do not add to what I command, and do not subtract. Today, it's commonplace to find the church being selective in its cafeteria of Christianity. I wonder what God thinks. Remember too, in verse 3, there's a warning about the bale of poor. Here's the warning. Left to ourselves, we know, and the Bible declares, this is how God looks at us. Left to ourselves, we are rebellious. We go our own way. We turn our back on the Creator. And God doesn't just let that go. So today, perhaps we need to allow God's heart to show us any consistent rebellion in the patterns of our life and ask for the help of the Holy Spirit, because surely he wants to do that. And then there is a very, very important teaching that we need to look at. Moses says to us, be careful to follow what God has said. You know what he's done. And your responsibility is to pass it on, a living tradition. Orthodox Christianity particularly understands this. We are to pass on the living tradition, the words and the works of God. We're not here to change those traditions. We're here, as it were, to be the postman who simply receives the letter and delivers the letter. And anything else is out of bounds to us. And we must be consistent in that we will teach the ways of God. So we pause. What do we know of the ways of God? Well, yesterday, we know that he has exercised mercy and that he has been merciful to us. So here we have Moses commanding obedience. And we might say, oh, that sounds harsh. Jesus will do the same in the New Testament, particularly in John's Gospel. And it sounds a little bit, if I can get my voice right, like this. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you love me, you will. Now we know our failure and we know our sin. But Christians have a new desire, a desire born of the Holy Spirit. And today, as we exercise memory, last Saturday we exercised imagination, use godly memory well. God has said this, I believe it, let's live it. And let's ask the Spirit of God, Lord, intensify in my experience all that you desire for me, for you are good and your desires are too.